Welcome to part 3 of the 4-part Queensland Government Meraki Network Readiness sessions, as sponsored by Data3, Cisco and Meraki. My name is Simon McCrosty. I'm the Meraki Partner Lead at Data3. Topic for today's session is Beyond Surveillance, Smart Cameras and the New Approach to Analytics, presented by Scott Williamson from Cisco Meraki. In addition, we'll also be adding IoT sensors to the topics covered in today's sessions. There'll be the usual opportunity to ask questions at the end of today's session, and I'll now hand over to Scott.
All right, thanks, Simon. Thanks for the intro. Today the plan is to cover smart cameras and things, which is an extension to the portfolio recently announced. So we'll cover sensors as well, which is new approach to CCTV, or really not CCTV, smart cameras. There's a lot more to it than just recording video. What makes them smart? We'll have a look at that in some real demos, and using analytics for good. And then we'll look at the sensors at the end as well. So ask questions in Q&A on the way through, or we can answer them whenever you want in there. So just reiterating the mission, and like I said, I'm not going to cover the whole, why Meraki mission at the beginning of every single session, but it's really about simplifying powerful technology to free passionate people to focus on the mission. And this is truly, CCTV or the smart cameras is really where we start to see this easy to understand, that's simplifying that outcome for the customer. How we've turned the industry on its head, and there's a bunch of other companies out there now following the Meraki lead on around machine learning and AI with inside this video space. And then we'll talk about the sensors. Technology that simply works, we'll just see it simply work inside here. So what I'll cover today as part of the agenda is just run through the traditional physical security architecture, what we would see from what we've done for the last 20 odd years or more, if you go back to even older days of analog. What makes the MV cameras smart and where they're different. Then we'll have a look at that in dashboard. Bit of a lineup of what cameras are in there at the moment. Cameras are sensor, the MV analytics. Have a look at how analytics make a difference. Just lightly touch on that because it's different for all use cases. Obviously, our super simple licensing model for this, and then sensors at the end is what we'll cover today. So traditional physical security architecture pretty much looks like this, where we have a bunch of cameras that are connected into the solution. They'll be going to things called these network video recorders or PVRs, NVRs, some sort of recording technology that'll have a bunch of disks inside there. So these cameras will just be pretty simple cameras. ONVIF would be the standard they're probably running, or something like that. Or they might be analog, still running coax inside there. And then in these little fellows here, basically a server or a glorified PC with multiple disks recording that video. This guy here, these cameras will be running some sort of Linux embedded operating system or some sort of closed system that probably hasn't been patched since the day that operating system was created. And it's a big vector for security attacks on organizations. The NVR is going to be similarly in that same boat, where it's going to have disks in it in different states of failure, and again running some sort of embedded Linux or in older embedded XP or Windows or something like that on those guys. And again, probably one of those security vectors where it hasn't been patched for a long time, or it's not managed, or it's just too hard to patch. Probably running really complex passwords such as user, admin, to access those, or monitor would be another one we'd see in that area. And then somewhere in a cupboard there'll be a PC, again running some sort of operating system that would be maybe on a separate physical network sometimes, maybe not, where this guy will be able to connect into that and be able to sit there and look at that video. So when I go look at the video for this solution, I go to that cupboard, open it up, I'd turn on the PC screen. There'll be a CRT typically, maybe a LCD nowadays, where you go and look at that footage and what's going on in there. If I want to remotely access that video, what we'll see a lot is someone would have installed VNC or something on that PC. The PC's probably got a 4G modem or something connected into, or it's bridged into my LAN of my network, and that's the way that we would access that. because it's all too hard to install a client on a PC and that kind of stuff. And you might sound like I'm over exaggerating. This is pretty typical in these environments. So, we end up with this architecture, so that's really hard to manage. It's, patching the security cameras, keeping them up to date, making sure those vector attacks aren't available is really, really hard to achieve in here, as much as everyone would like to. So normally it's ring fenced off and put over in the corner. And it's only really used for post-incident analysis anyway, where let's go and look at the video after an incident. Oh, look at that, the disks had all failed in that network video recorder. We better put a job in the thing to go and replace those disks, or let's go and get that footage. And you'll see a lot of times online where it'll be, someone holding their phone up to the screen, recording the screen because it's too hard to get a MP4 file off there because MP4s probably weren't around in those days. So, and honestly, I'm not exaggerating as much as you see. So that's what we kind of have today in traditional CCT worlds. And it's been changed a lot as we move through. You see, a lot of the consumer grade products, the rings and that kind of stuff, where they're turning us in the head, making them cloud-based and making them easy to manage, but they're still focusing on that consumer use case, and can become quite expensive if we want to try and get stuff into the cloud. So Meraki looked at this and looked at the opportunity around the world and went, hey, we can make this much better. We know how to drive clouds, and we can manage that stuff. So they, really the basis of this, which goes into that mission statement, is we're not about we're not about building features, we're about solving problems inside there. So we could just go and take exactly what was done there today, and we could wrap it with a cloud wrapper and call it, smart cameras, or we can look at the outcome the customer's trying to get and completely redesign the whole solution to then have a native cloud implementation of this, where I'm not shipping gigabytes of video around the world. I'm not doing, complex tasks like that. This is all achieved in the smart camera range. This is like a view of them here. Meraki is the cloud leader in security cameras. Each one of these cameras has its own inbuilt disks and storage where we store that video. We'll talk about that as we go through, so you can understand how we manage that in a better way in there. And as that video camera is recording that, we're creating artifacts about that video, and we're using that, or metadata, as we would do inside there. They're basically to act as a sensor and not just cameras. This is the architecture here, as opposed to before. We have a bunch of cameras recording a scene. As those cameras are recording that scene, they're creating, intelligence about that video. Hey, here's an object that's a person. Here's an object that's a vehicle. Or here's movement. Here's no movement. We don't really care. I want to go and find an incident at a certain time. I can just quickly go and find that. And I'll show that quickly in a demo. If I want to then access that video, like I said, it's recorded to a local disk on the camera. Then I would just use a normal HTML5 web browser, Google, whatever the Microsoft one's called this week, Edge, or Internet Explorer, or whatever, Safari. We don't really care. There's no client software requirement apart from HTML5 and native browsers. If I'm on premise, we're smart enough to know that browser's on premise, the camera's on premise. We'll just send that video stream inside the same browser session to the end user trying to look at that video. If you're not on premise, then we'll proxy that via our cloud. We do a little join, patch it through on the outside of our cloud because we don't want customer data in our cloud and don't want that video up inside there. And we'll just join that through. So the same user, same experience, whether they're on premise or off premise, using a browser to view that video to make that nice and easy. In a camera's normal function, as it's doing that artifacts and understanding what's going on, it's less than 50 kilobits per second per camera for the day-to-day data. When they're watching that stream with adaptive codecs, it'll just depend on the bandwidth available on how much video is consumed. Obviously, if we go and put a shaper on those for X bandwidth, then we'll get lower video grade as well in there. So nice and easy to manage inside there. One of the key tenets of everything inside Meraki, and the cameras really are part of this, is video at rest is encrypted, video in transit is fully encrypted, and all our management data plane is encrypted. So each one of these cameras for every single Meraki device has this little trusted access module, little Cisco chip inside there, which is used for all the certificate-based authentication into the cloud, or trusted in the cloud. This is our hardware running our software connected to our cloud. When we start a camera up, it then goes and generates its own signed certificate and then encrypts its disk based on that. So therefore, if someone takes that camera and uses it somewhere else, or pulls it apart and pulls out the internal storage and plugs it in some other magic way into a PC and tries to access it, it's pointless to them. It can't, have fun with your 76 years of trying to decrypt that at best, sorry, in there. And so they're, it's quite important and quite neat. So a lot of our cameras won't run through TLS inspection or man-in-the-middle attacks and that kind of stuff, because we need to trust that data is going to the end user, and it needs to be that trust chain all the way through. If it's being de-encrypted and re-encrypted in the middle, then that video data is being compromised, so it just won't work inside that, which is pretty key in there. Let's have a quick look at some of the stuff I talked about there today. So this is a bunch of cameras inside here. If I was going to go and look at this from a map and floor plan point of view, I get the cameras, I'll put them on a map. I'm just going to show the cameras around my place here, inside here. So here we are, I can hover over a camera and I get a thumbnail of what that camera is actually seeing in real time inside there today. So nice and easy to go and see what's going on inside. If I want to go and launch one of these cameras, for example, this carports camera, I would just go and click on that and cross launch.
Actually,
this is
Scott,
like a simple UI. Yep.
Scott, we can't see, we've just seen the green demo screen at the moment.
Oh, sorry. I didn't share the second thing. Thanks for pulling me up on that one. Getting too carried away. I'll show it again. Reverse, cut that bit out, edit it later on. So what we'll see from floor, you can see that now, Simon? Cool. Yep. Is floors and map plan here is topology view of the site or buildings or whatever. That can be Google Maps as well. If I hover over the cameras, I can see the video snapshot from those now. If I wanted to go to one of those cameras, then I can just go and select that camera. So it makes it an easy, intuitive user interface inside there. So here's a camera overlooking carports at my place, where we can go and see that kind of footage. Now, say something happened to this vehicle here, I want to see what's going on inside there. Because we're doing all that, intelligence in the cloud and metadata about this video, we can quickly go and search for movement in certain spots. So here, see a grid. This is what's recorded in the cloud. The video's on the camera, and I want to say, hey, when did this vehicle move? And I'm pretty sure something happened to it at about 7:45 today. What happened in that time? And then I get down the bottom of here, I'll get the cat walking out there. We'll get nice video footage here of a snapshot showing all the times when their movement was, and like a flow of those in the one screen, so we can see what's going on. And if I was to select one of those, I can then say, hey, there's the movement on that video time. Let's go and download that image. So I've got everything inside there and what happened. Or let's go and play that, or let's go and export that as an MP4 file. I can export up to 24 hours. Then I can go and play that video. I want to go and see what happened inside there. And so here's that video synchronized and played straight away as that vehicle's reversed out inside there. And as it moves beyond cameras, I can then flick between cameras and be synchronized across there. So that's a simple video search. The cat doesn't like the car inside there. If I go to the next camera, I'll then automatically be synchronized for that footage, and we'll see that go up there. So that's sort of the easy usability of those cameras, and how easy it is to export footage and see what's going on inside there. Also things like zoom functionality and that as well for looking around there, and that's probably more prevalent in our 360 cameras as well. So that's the use of the cameras. The other stuff it does is analytics on the camera, where in a space I can go and count the number of vehicles that have gone up and down that driveway at certain times, and then I can go in and straight into the video footage at those times and have a look at that in there as well, where I'll count objects that are vehicles and when they come in and out of that driveway. There's an example there. I'll just jump back to the present now. So that's just usability. I'm not going to go deep into every single function on those. It's something that we can run through, or if you're interested in trials or demos to do that, we can cover that at the end of the session. So the MV lineup today are these four little fellas. So we have the MV72, which is the IK10 plus IP67 rated outdoor camera. That has either 256 or 512 gig of storage on there. Now the storage on there isn't relevant 100% to how much it can, how many hours or days of footage it can store. We do a capability on these cameras called motion-based retention, where we retain any video after 3 days where there is movement, because all the video without movement is pretty useless to us. Then we have the MV22, which is the same as a 72, but indoor, so it isn't outdoor rated in there. And then we have little babies, little MV12s, which is these little fellas here, which are nice and small as a camera, you know, for indoor mounting. And they come in 3 variants, which is a narrow, the 256 gig wide, a narrow, or a 128 gig low cost wide version, just to sort of meet a lower cost point for those guys in special fixed areas. I'm going to look down a hallway, I use an MV12 narrow. I want to look over, you know, a whole office floor area, I'll use the MV12W, and then I'm not going to use the very focals, which is what the MV22 and 72 are, which means I can then adjust that focal length from like over 100 degrees down to I think like in the 70s or something like that. And then we have the fisheye camera, the MV32, which is a 360 camera, which is really 180, but let's call it 360, where we can see a whole area and then do flat images off that. I'll show that in a minute as well. But it's the same size as the MV12s. Other features and functionalities that we have in the dashboard, now these are additional, so the camera includes all the features and functionalities on it, and then we have other capabilities for certain cameras. So we have a capability called cloud archiving, which allows for guaranteed storage, which is pushed off to a cloud for 30, 90, 180 days or a year, which allows 24/7 archiving. Now, the way we access that video is exactly the same way. If I go back to the dashboard here and we look at this up driveway camera, is down the bottom of this footage here, you'll see that green line and you'll see the blue line. The blue line is cloud archiving when I'm sending to cloud. So if I went back, you know, a long time, and go back days and days, we'll see, you know, where the green line will disappear, and then eventually only the blue line will be there, which is then I'll draw it off cloud archiving. Now, from a dashboard usability point of view, is there is no change. I can go and use the same dashboard capabilities inside there without having to change the way a user will work. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it back to a date when I'm not archiving in there. Here you see there's only the blue line in here. So if I'm looking at this time here, that's now pulling it off cloud archiving. As you can see, as a user, I haven't had to change anything I have to do to interact with that thing. Now, if we think about the old traditional CCTV installs, is I would have to go to the SAN in the data center or an archive server. I would have to point my client at that and then go and find that date and start looking at that footage to see what I want. Where here I still have exactly the same you know, search capabilities where I can go and search in certain times and days and get all exactly the same information as what we would otherwise on-prem. Now, the storage stuff I was talking about before, the retention, here's where we go and set video settings on these cameras, and we also do our quality and retention rating. So here I can say, you know, what video quality in that I'm going to record at and the size and time, and then whether I have motion-based retention on this camera. Hasn't got it on because it's doing cloud archiving. But here I have motion-based retention on, so this camera here will store 30 days at, you know, these sort of things. If I want to install longer, then I can modify the video resolution or the video quality. If I turn off motion-based retention on this camera, which means I then recording everything on the disk, I get 14 days. If I turn it on, then I'm back to 30 days. And that's based on, you know, the movement on the camera, the number of hours of movement on that camera. So if you have an indoor camera, it's not used weekends and night times, it'll get really, really long retention thing. Like I said, if you want to guarantee retention, cloud archiving is how we can do that. Here, this data is pushed off to a Azure container up inside there for compliance reasons, not in our cloud. Works on all cameras. You know, so then you know, some of the transitions that we would do from traditional CCTV installs is how do I move from analog cameras which have a coax and a piece of power cable that runs out to there. I want to be able to connect this camera in, or I have a remote area more than 100 meters away where I can't run Cat5 to power the camera, or I just want to pop a camera up for simple management. So all the cameras support wireless functionality, so there's no need to have wide coverage to be able to power it, because as I talked about last week, we haven't sorted out that power over wireless yet, but once we get there, we'll be good inside there. So what we can do in that case is we can take this little power puck here, which looks a lot like this little fella here, and we can just power that. This one here is just powered by 12 volts DC, and then we can power the camera off that with Ethernet, as you can see there. This is an MV72 in there, and that then is powered and wirelessly connected back into that network without any hassle. So that's what these little fellas here for, little power puck, take power, provide PoE out of it to run the camera and wireless in. Now, camera app as a sensor. So the majority of video is never watched and only really needed in certain use cases. Like one of my customers had a traditional CCTV install, and they had recording all this video. They had multiple disk failures constantly across all their sites across Australia. Is at any stage they claim 20 to 30% of their NVRs had disk failures. So it was a constant job to go and push it out. Then they also, said when we want to go and watch that video, the likelihood of it being the failed one is quite high. And then if we want to go and find that incident, we then go and download all that video, put it on a PC, we watch it at high speed in there. So how do I get to that really quickly? We saw that before with motion-based search, where it can take that down from lots of hours to simple. But there's also other stuff that we can do on these cameras around that insight. So how do we, learn and provide more insights over time, understand behavioural patterns on the cameras, so then provide context to trigger other actions. Hey, I've detected an object that's a person. The camera will say it's a person. We're not going to identify that person on the Meraki solution, because then we wouldn't be able to sell the cameras into a lot of places in the world around privacy reasons. But we can go and flick that still image off to something that will go and do that post-processing and say, hey, this is serial number XYZ, which equals it's going to be Scott. And if I've seen that across multiple cameras, then I can know where he is. Or, hey, this person it has entered a gate, detect an object that's a person, send it off to a cloud to have a look at what's going on there. Are they wearing the right PPE? Do they have their hard hat on? All those sort of use cases is where we'll provide that context. So the object detection on the cameras today is humans and vehicles, and then we can use those as trigger actions inside there. A bunch of that's about, using machine learning and that capability in the back end of the intelligence of the cameras inside there. And that machine learning and intelligence is accessible by multiple ways for interactions in other systems using our open APIs. Again, the APIs that are usable on the cameras are included with the camera. If we have certain extra steps, we have a capability called MV Sense, which is about tracking those objects across the camera. Then that's an additional subscription for that model for these guys, which is a little bit different to our other models inside there. But we didn't want to tax all customers with the advanced functionality if they didn't need that. So APIs today, we take lots of data in, we go and munge that data inside our back end, machine learning or machine vision in this case, and then we can just go and ask, the dashboard certain things. How many people are in that zone now? How many people were in that shop between 9 and 10 a.m. and just return back a figure to say, hey, I detected 20 objects that were people inside at that time, rather than having to go and watch that video or do anything else. Current snapshot, how many people there now? As I said, bang, I've got a bunch of checkouts, retail use case again, I know. How many people are in all those lines, so those queues? Do I start open another checkout? Or just do a current snapshot and see that? Or a real-time feed. How many people are in this area now? Just give me a constant stream of data of how many people are there. There's also another snapshot functionality, which is really, hey, give me a still image off that camera right now so I can go and process that in there. I won't go through use cases because I talked through a lot of them there as well. Now, some of the functionality on the camera as a sensor, as I sort of showed before, that analytics functionality here, where I can go and count objects that are vehicles in this case, or persons or vehicles, and how many times they've entered or left the frame. Now, we did do an acquisition a little while back called a company called ModCam, which will allow us to track objects across cameras over time. So that'll be integrated into our portfolio over the next period of time, and then we'll have more functionality there too. But if we quickly go and look at, I'll just bring up another tool here, and I'll share this in a second, which I should have had shared. And then I'll just share this into the meeting as well. So here, here is just WebEx Teams, which could be any sort of Teams apps that I can go and you know, interact with that. So here I can interact with a camera, and I can send it off to a certain cloud, for example, to go and do some, you know, other deep learning on that imagery. So I can just type in here. Sorry. Nope. And then I can say, hey, go and run that through that engine. So what this will do, and this can be automated, is it'll go off, grab that snapshot, push it up, in this case, to AWS Recognize, and then go and do some intelligence around that video. That can then be used as metadata in other systems. So this is using the camera in a smart way. So we also have a bunch of other ecosystem partners that will consume this data and provide this, you know, at scale across organizations for certain industry verticals, education, retail, and the likes. So here from that video, that snapshot there, we can see, hey, we've detected a toy, a figurine, some text, and there's no facial data because the facial data is moved, which is always interesting. Here's the facial data. It's a human, 93% confidence. It's a male between 23 and 35. His emotional state's happy. That's all metadata that can be then used, using the camera as a sensor, using the API to push off to other systems inside there. Oop, back over to here. So here's an example of that. Here's an example of, you know, doing vehicle detection inside there, where at certain angles we can start to do license plate detection and add that, you know, to the cameras. But basically, it becomes a sensor and becomes easily accessible and usable across multiple platforms. Like I said, there's a bunch of technology partners. So Meraki.io is a good website to go to, and then Marketplace. And there's a heap of companies in there that build against the Meraki system. There's some that only build against the Meraki system for cameras. So one of those is a company called Every Angle that use the cameras and our access point data to provide a lot more intelligence inside here. So here's, you know, them monitoring a warehouse with cameras, but no video footage needs to be seen here. We can look for things like, you know, spillages on the floor. Is my lighting level correct? All the cameras have a lux lighting sensor in them as well. Hey, there's suspicious behavior happening because people are interacting in ways that we call suspicious. How many objects or people are going in and out of the warehouse? What's the aisle movement? That kind of stuff. All this intelligence, which is just simply from the camera or cell phone usage, where we can detect someone holding something up to their ear inside of it, used in those engines. Every Angle also have a bunch of capabilities around the COVID-19 use cases, number of density of people in office environments, or in this case, in a store. You know, we have a safe occupancy level. We can detect how many people in that store and then stop or start that, which is work we've done with some major supermarkets around the world as well, to say, hey, how many objects of humans are going into the store, how many come out, what's the total count, what's the square meterage of it, what's the safe occupancy to keep the authorities happy inside there. So simple stuff you can push in there. Here's one of the Cisco stores as well with another company called VApp, which again pull data out of wireless and the video sensors, where we can start to look at the age distribution of people going into this location, their gender, their emotions, for example, in there. Again, all this video data, analytics data that's pulled off the camera and kept easy. Won't keep going through all those. So not only is it just for physical security, but also, you know, motion searching capabilities you saw there. So it's simple finding the problem type solution. Motion heat maps, which I didn't show, which will show, you know, density of usage of areas in certain locations. If I just jump back to the dashboard here, and we scroll down on this page, we'll see, you know, where the heat maps were from time inside there. So if I wanted to go and do, you know, works on this driveway, and for you know, yesterday or something like that, I want to know what's the average use of different areas, and I can just quickly go and look at those motion heat maps and work out when does it get used and when doesn't it get used, and which ways to go. You know, simple heat mapping of what's going on. Could be used for people density, that kind of stuff in certain locations. And then object detection. Hey, I want to just know that there's a person there or a vehicle there, rather than just trying to find a cat or something like that in there. and for counting and the likes. So around the licensing model for cameras, it's a nice simple licensing model, one camera, one license. There's no network video recorder and the likes to license because they're not part of the solution and don't need to be. If you look at other models, you have to buy the video recorder. It does up to 16 cameras or 8 cameras or whatever. And then I have to buy the cameras and add to that. Once I reach the maximum of cameras for the network video recorder, then I have to go and buy the next model up or put another one on there. With the cameras, just keep scaling it forever. You know, there is scaling limitations on the dashboard, but it's about 10,000 cameras per organisation. So we shouldn't be too worried about that as an upper limit. That includes all features and functionalities. Now, the additionals I talked about there was if we want to add cloud archiving, which we wouldn't do on every camera. You think of like a bank or something like that. We would probably only care about cloud archiving the entry and exit cameras, and the other 3 or 4 cameras inside a store or location wouldn't need cloud archiving. And then the advanced API functionality called MV Sense, which is a real-time feed of data off the cameras for a number of people, the additions for the licensing in there. All the cameras, you know, include a 3-year warranty on that model. We can use a thing called Meraki Now, which is like a Cisco support for the cameras, which allows you know, for longer SLA'd responses and you know, replacements beyond the 3 years. That includes all software functionalities, bug fixes, updates, 24/7 phone and online support included in that license. License is either 1, 3, 5, 7 or 10 years in there. So that's it. That's it pretty much on the cameras side of it. We'll just have a look at the sensors now as an addition to that, because they actually go together in different ways than what we'd expect inside there. And as we build out more and more functionality, it'll fit in there as well. So if we think about the number of sensors inside places, like we all buy sensors for homes and light bulbs and different devices and have to be managed. We have to onboard them onto our network all different ways. Like I bought a light bulb the other day to replace one of the downlights in the house, which had a 3-pin plug on it, so I can legally replace it. And then I had to add it to my wireless network. First of all, I can only add it to a 2.4 gig wireless network, so you have to disable 5 gig on that network, or have an SSID that only supports 2.4 gig. So I have to go and change something to do that. Then I have to install an app on my phone, and then I have to go and manually enter a serial number or scan in a barcode in that to claim the device into that app inside there, or I can auto search for that device. You know, then I have to manually configure the device with the SSID, the passphrase for that SSID, and all that kind of functionality, which is really kind of okay when you're doing one light at home. I was thinking if I was going to replace the other 20 downlights in your house, like I've got to do the same repetitive function 20 times. So you just teach one of your kids to do it and you walk away and hope they get it done inside there. So it becomes quite difficult, and that's just not, you know, what we see, you know, on consumer devices where, you know, we have to press a reset button, add in, you know, connect to its Wi-Fi SSID, configure it up, and then we can start to use the device. It makes it a really bad user experience, especially at scale. If we look at enterprise products as well, like here's, you know, certain vendors' power rail, which I probably should blur out, but, you know, we have to, again, turn it on, plug into it for a serial cable, run a terminal software or some special software inside there. When I run my sensors on the device, I have to go and terminate the last one with a resistor. You know, super simple, sorry, that's being sarcastic, very difficult to do, and something that you only want to really do once inside there. You know, there's a lot of information about that, default passwords, Windows only utilities to, you know, to update the device or add the config. And so they're really, you know, not simple. And that's not to say, you know, the operating system on the device and how it's secured and hardened and all those sorts of things as well. So from a corporate point of view, not a great experience. As I said, long deployment times, you know, missed insights, hard to scale and really hard to manage in a network. So what Meraki's launched is a bunch of sensors today, which is 3 sensors we've tackled today, and that's the temperature humidity sensor, a door sensor, and a water leak sensor, because they were, you know, out of the asking the world of what they want to see, these are the main ones. And the focus really here is around that, you know, enterprise IT data center, where they just want to stick one camera in there to see what's going on, and then have sensors to cross monitor stuff because it's hard to get. I can vouch for that in our Cisco lab in Brisbane. We have a little data center provided by Cisco. it has all this monitoring and that kind of stuff. We find out that the lab's at 50 degrees when our equipment starts to shut down. Or you go into the office and go to open the handle of the door of the lab, and the handle on the outside is red hot. And you can hear all the fans running in there flat out. That's the way we find out that there's high temperature in the lab. We've now stuck one of these sensors in there, makes it much easier. We get alerts straight away, and I'll show you how it's done. All the cameras run standard batteries, so that just AA batteries, which are included. The AA batteries, we're expecting a 3 to 5 year battery life out of those guys. The water leakage sensor and the temperature sensor can also be run off USB if you want to do that. They're all what we call Bluetooth Low Energy, or BLE, and they all have 5 days of storage on board. Which again, I can vouch for. I set one up here at home. I drove into the office, and then a couple of hours later, I put it in the office and had the temperature of my drive all the way to work in there as well. The way we've tried to make this simple is just to be able to claim in the dashboard, and they're there. There's nothing else to really do. So from a typical Meraki process, when I go and order sensors, so I went and ordered 10 sensors, I'd place an order on data 3. Pretty much straight away, I'd get my order number, my Meraki order number or Cisco Meraki order number. I can just go and add that to my dashboard. That includes all my licenses and all the serial numbers for the devices that I've just purchased as one copy and paste. And that's you claiming it into your dashboard, and that's a legal process that needs to be done so that you have rights of ownership to that. But that's all added to there straight away. Then I go and put those sensors in the network, and then I turn them on, and that's it. They just home back into the network and provide data. Now, they only home back into Meraki access points, Wi-Fi 6 access points today, and the Meraki cameras, which all have Bluetooth transmit receive radios in them as well. So there's nothing to configure on that side. Just go straight in there, inside there. So that lab I was talking about before is that I have a camera in that lab, which I can show you, which had the sensor just connects to that, and off we go. There's nothing else for me to configure apart from sticking a thing on the wall. The box comes with double-sided tape, little mounting brackets, screws, little screwdrivers, everything that's needed to do to install them. That's got a magnet as well, so you can just magnet to a cabinet in there, and then data starts to flow. It is so simple, it's ridiculous in there. You know, like I said, the focus area initially could be anywhere, but you know, it makes sense in like a little data center where we hear a lot of complaints from customers about water leakage in the floors, about door sensors, no one knows who's going in and out, and temperature, humidity inside there. So that's like a simple thing, like if you wanted to do a proof of concept, or if you wanted to purchase, you know, a camera and 3 sensors and stick them in there. It's a really simple, let's just go and test this in this comms room here and see how that scales out inside there. You know, ideal for monitoring all a variety of concerns I talked about, you know, adverse weather conditions, HVAC, or you know, air conditioning not doing what it's supposed to do. Old buildings where we can't run wiring for traditional sensors because it's all Bluetooth, double-sided tape. You know, critical inventory or rooms where I wanted to monitor temperature, humidity, like record keeping rooms and that kind of stuff. You know, manufacturing sites always on, network closets, you know, the likes, just goes, you know, becomes whatever you want to do. They're not outdoor rated, so, you know, just keep that in mind as well. So simple to deploy, cloud managed, scalable, easy to use inside there, which results in reduction in unnecessary site visits, which is much easier this time. Hey, send someone a sensor, they stick it on a wall, off you go. You know, if we know what temperature our lab's running at, not 50 degrees, because when you go above room temperature for all IT equipment, it derates its life. So the less time above its operating temperature, the better. You know, which then in long term will have uptime connectivity inside there. You know, visibility is king. We'll have a look at this in dashboard. Once I find my mouse pointer in there, I'll just jump into our lab network over here, cameras and sensors. And here's my environmental sensor page as well, straight up front. So it's designed to be really simple to view, to say, hey, what devices are offline, warning, online, and dormant. And I've created some alarms, what's alarming. So nothing's alarming, nothing to see here, it's all cool. But if I do want to go in and have a look at the sensors, I can just click on the sensors tab, and here's the current sensors and where they're at. So sitting beside me here, I have the random door sensor, which I can open, and then we can go and have a look at that and it reporting it. So you can see the battery life, serial number, that kind of stuff, the current status for that camera, for that sensor, and what's going on inside there. For the temperature sensor, the same sort of functionality here, where I can go and look at the temperature over a period of time in that lab and humidity with nothing to do. I can see what alert profiles are added. I can see what cameras in this case I'm Bluetooth connected into. Not that it's relevant, but just gives you an idea on who you're connected to and how it's working, and if you've got some redundancy for them to connect to in there. Now, adding alert profiles in there as well. If we want to go and add an alert, we'll go and create a profile. So I can go and create a new profile here, and it's going to be called very high temperature. And then on that, I can go and add temperature is above 50 degrees centigrade, for example. The temperature is centigrade or Fahrenheit, depending on what your profile in your dashboard is set at. And then I can go and set that alert to go off to whoever I like inside that world. And then I can go and add a phone number in there as well. I won't click on that because it'll show my phone number on the screen, which really doesn't matter. But then SMS gateways and email capabilities are built in there as well. You'll also notice that we say here that anyone that's in network-wide alerts, so the general alerts for Meraki dashboard, will get the email alerts as well. And that's as simple as what we have to do to create the alert. And then we just go and bind the sensor to there. So we go to sensors here. I've got my lab thing here. I can then go and manage alert profiles, and I can go and select whichever ones I want to add to that nice and easily there. So that's pretty much it for the sensors and how easy they are to manage, add to dashboard, and get that visibility from really quickly in there, for that status across there. Oh, what I didn't show was the ability to have it in a location, which I picked the wrong one there, and then have you can go and add photos of where it's installed and all that kind of stuff as well in the lab there as well. I haven't added a photo for this one yet, but add a photo for where it's installed so you can see where it is. We can see where it is for this guy because I can go to cameras and we can go and look at where it is on the wall anyway, which is just over here in the Brisbane lab there. That's the MV10 temperature humidity sensor installed on there, on that box there with a magnet because I didn't want to make it permanent in there. And that's what our Brisbane lab looks like from Cisco if you want to see that as well. So that's pretty much all I had today in there. The next steps for inside us, we'll have some Q&A in a second from Simon, but the next questions, we'll do this in different order every time, is if you want to try it, reach out to the Data3 team. We can arrange trials or have a chat about your problems and how we can meet those with these solutions. To keep up to speed, there's Meraki communities, which are great. So communities.meraki.com. Lots of good information there and questions being asked on there as well. Where next? Reach out to the Data3 team. Inside that, there's a survey that's been sent out at the end of the session, or there's multiple ways. Reach out to your AM and all that kind of stuff inside there. Any questions there, Simon, that I've missed?
Yeah, sure, Scott. Thank you. I've got one here. So I've got an NVR in my camera CCT architecture at the moment. But if I want to move to Meraki cameras to replace my old NVR kit, is there a way that I can blend the migration? So can I start off by using some Meraki cameras while I'm retaining my NVR architecture?
Yeah, definitely. So what we've added to the cameras to help with that migration is that you change some cameras. Like one of the companies I work with, they want us to change the front door and back door cameras to Meraki so that they can start to count people in there as well. And that means they end up with 2 dashboards and 2 systems. So all the Meraki cameras, we added a capability called real-time streaming protocol to the cameras, RSTP, where we can then configure the cameras to stream to the NVR, and it can be configured on there. And then that video is still recorded to the NVR until the rest of the cameras in the location are replaced, or it might be like that forever in that location because maybe their NVR and their 20 camera approach might be a lower cost than replacing them all with Meraki cameras, and just need to get the magic out of those couple of cameras. So that's one way, is real-time streaming protocol off the camera straight in the network video recorder for that.
Okay. And also regarding camera footage, is there an easy way for me to export selected snippets of camera footage to, say, police or a third party if there's something that I need to report?
Yep, yeah, I'll show that in dashboard the best. So if we've got a camera here, this is the wireless one behind me, taking pictures of some gnomes. So say we had an incident on here, and I wanted to go and export that. Here I've got a share button here where I can go share. I can share a link externally, which will then do a real-time link feed where I can send it off to a person, track that, who has that access if I want to get real-time. Say I've got a contractor coming on site, or I wanted to give, I'm running an event in my event room in my office on a Saturday, and I wanted to give video footage to someone that I don't want to give access to dashboard. I can use this functionality there. Again, they just get a URL to follow in that. Or I can export a video clip where here you can see, here's my video clip over time, and I can go and export that off to dashboard, which will then be stored up there. I can do multiples of those exports, clips inside there, and then I can join those together and save them as one MP4 with the time and date stamps between each one. Probably won't have it archived in time for here. They're still getting sent up there, but then we can monitor those over time in the dashboard here, where I can then go and join those. So I can go tick, tick, combine the selected exports, and then give it a file name and export that from the dashboard. So that's a couple of ways to do that.
Yep. So that share, just out of interest, that can be rescinded at any point.
Correct. Yep. So there's both, internal and external. Sharing internal means I have to be on premise to get that, where basically I'll just get a URL to send one, that be contacted there for 24 hours. And then, the external one, you can see down here, here's the external streams and when they're going to expire on there.
Thank you. With the power puck, how does that differ from direct switch PoE or a power injector connecting to 240 volts?
Yeah, so you could use, so if you had 240 volts, the power injector is probably going to be the best way to power the camera if you're going to wireless it in or you don't have PoE. That's one way because it has the pass-through, whereas the power puck is really designed in like a solar install or to replace coaxial type CCTV cameras, which are going to be powered off 12 volts DC or 24 volts AC. It'll take that and turn it into PoE and power the camera while it's connected back in there. So it's those different use cases in there. If your PoE switches one way or a power injector would be another way.
Also, with the Azure-based service that's used or provided for cloud storage, who actually runs that? Is it my tenant that I set up that stores that information, or is it a Meraki tenant?
No, it's seamless to the end user. So when I go back to that other camera back there, there's nothing. The only thing to set up is you basically have a cloud archiving license for a camera, and then we go and bind it to the camera, and then it's all managed in the Meraki dashboard. There's no no interaction with the customer to the back end or anything like that to Azure. It's all just managed inside the camera functionality. There's no extra additional overwork or anything required from anyone to manage that storage at all.
So it's just a license fee to get access to it.
Yep,
and
that's
then away you go. Okay.
Yep.
And that's a license fee per camera.
Yep. So we don't expect people to do it on every camera. We expect it to be something that you do on like the cameras that really needed that from that point of view. And so here's that external streaming as well. And so you kind of expect it to be on certain cameras because really by law the people that say we need to keep 7 years of footage, it's only 7 years of exported footage. So if I have an incident, I've got to keep that video footage for evidence for 7 years. That would be an export, an MP4 stored in my normal file store area. If I have compliance in certain areas, I'll be like 30 days or 90 days of video guaranteed stored of all video, not just movement video. that's when we look at cloud archiving. And typically, if we look at a bank, that's going to only be on ATM cameras and external doors, and that's it, not the rest of the cameras in that environment.
Okay, so what you're saying is that if for compliance reasons I need to hold a copy for 7 years, that I can use the export function that's provided there. Now, that export function, can that be automated, or do I have to remember to export every day, or do I do it once a week?
You're not going to keep, yeah, so legally you don't have to keep all the video footage, because that would be a lot. That'd be terabytes and terabytes of video stored. That would be really hard to, to find the incidents or whatever's gone on inside there. So all that's really needed is the incidents or problems that have happened, and that video exported as evidence. So you would have an incident, a workplace incident that's happened, for example. You would export that out. The MP4 file would then go into your normal file archiving process, much like email and the likes inside there. It's not going to be, you're not going to be exporting 24 hours of video every 24 hours. So today, there's no ability in the dashboard to have it automatically export every 24 hours, because it's kind of, not really needed, not a big use case that's required as we dig into that. But, if there are customers with those scenarios, happy to chat through that and work that through, but I haven't found one yet where we have to, provide that sort of, 100% of all video being stored for seven years.
Oh, look, that's great. Thanks very much, Scott, for your session today. Just reminding everyone that the final part 4 of the 4-part series will be next Wednesday, and the topic that we're covering is secure SD-WAN in minutes. So we look forward to you joining us then, same time, next Wednesday, and thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.